Alrighty, friends. Well, let's go ahead and get this thing started. So, today is going to be our intro to our wellness classes. I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing here. Um, we're going to be talking about three focuses in particular: mental health, spiritual health, and physical health. So, as you can imagine, all those are very important. And today we're going to be getting into, again, just the intro, but if you guys have a pen and paper next to you, highly recommend taking some notes. You could probably benefit immediately from some of this stuff you can take away from this lesson. So I'm going to try not to take up too much of your time, but so if I start to rant on something because I am so excited about this content, please tell me to stop in the chat, and I'll keep on moving. But with that being said, on the opposing side, if you guys have any questions about a bullet point in particular, tell me to pause or elaborate. Or if you have a totally separate question, no worries. Don't feel like you're interrupting. I encourage this to be an interactive lesson. So I will do my best to answer all your questions, and let's jump into it. So again, we're talking about overall wellness here. In future lessons, we're going to be getting into specifics of, let's say how to set up your weightlifting routine. That would be part of physical wellness, right? Today, it's just an intro. So we're going to be covering quite a few topics. And who I pulled this from, because I want all of the data that I'm going over to be scientifically backed and to have the most updated information we possibly can be talking about. And so I'm pulling a lot of this stuff from Dr. Andrew Huberman. If you guys are unfamiliar with him, he's a neuroscientist and he's a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford University. And I really, really enjoy listening to him. I respect the work he does, and he's trying to provide as much free information about science to the public as possible. And he's able to decipher and articulate really in-depth scientific journals and, give it to us in a way that is easy to understand. So a lot of what he does, I have great respect for. And so I'm pulling from his 8 pillars of health, overall health. And so those pillars are sleep, sunlight, exercise, stress management, relationships, including to self, nutrients, which includes amount, timing, and content, oral health and gut microbiome, and also spiritual grounding. So we're going to be covering all these briefly today as an intro. And like I said, a lot of this stuff you can implement right away. So even though we're not going to be going in depth into any one particular subject, we will be able to cover quite a bit. So like I said, if you do have a pen and pencil next to you, or if you're on the computer and want to type out some notes, maybe questions to ask, I will do my best to answer with the best ability, or my best ability. So let's jump into this, guys. We'll start off with number one, and I'll tell you guys who I'm grabbing the bullet points from. Not all of them are from Dr. Andrew Huberman. Some of them are from other doctors. So the number one thing we should be focusing on when talking about our overall health is sleep. So these bullet points are from Dr. Matthew Walker. He has his degree in neurophysiology, and he's a sleep scientist. That's what he focuses on. He's been doing it for well over a decade, close to 2 now, and he has some great information. So we'll talk about sleep and the benefits of it briefly. So we have cognitive function. It enhances memory, learning, and creative thinking when you're getting properly timed sleep and enough of it. And what I mean properly timed, I mean consistent sleep. So you're going to bed at the same time every night, and you're waking up at the same time every morning, within give or take 30 minutes to an hour. So another benefit is your physical health. It reduces risks of heart disease, diabetes, and obesity, improves mental health. It's linked to emotional stability, and poor sleep increases risk of depression and anxiety. So again, a lot of what we cover in when we talk about risk management and psychology behind trading is the ability to properly control your emotions and not act on them while executing trades. So again, sleep super important for that. Your longevity in general. Consistent sleep contributes to a longer and healthier life. And again, if you guys would like, I can also link a ton of really well-made, robust scientific studies for you guys backing all this stuff up. Hormonal balance regulates appetite and weight control. Your reproductive health. So if you plan to be a parent or are trying to be a parent currently, it affects your fertility and libido. Sleep does. Your immunity, it strengthens the immune system, helping to fight infections, and emotional resilience, like we touched on earlier. It improves stress management and emotional reactivity. So that's all I got. What's going on, JV? Long time no see. Moving on, we're going into sunlight, and these points are from Dr. Andrew Huberman. And again, ophthalmologists, they study the eye and its effects on not only your brain but your overall body. And so one of Huberman's biggest focuses is on sunlight and also darkness, and how those two are both essential and their benefits are separate. So if you're able to get sunlight in the morning and on the evening before sunset, and also get darkness before sleep, those are not, they're exclusive in their benefits, and both of them are necessary for proper sleep, which we just talked about. So jumping into it, let's talk about sunlight. You guys should be getting out in the morning at least for a minimum of 5 minutes to get sunlight on your eyes. It helps set your circadian rhythm. And if you guys are unaware of what a circadian rhythm is, so we have a master circadian rhythm, which is essentially a clock in our brains, and it is on a 24-hour time period. We also have small circadian rhythms that are a part of nearly every cell in our body. And some scientists believe that it is in every single cell, this 24-hour cycle. So setting your circadian rhythm is essential for overall physical and mental health. And it helps regulate your sleep-wake cycles by syncing the body's internal clocks. So sunlight also enhances your mood. So it boosts serotonin levels, improving mood and reducing stress. Your vitamin D production, like Mr. Frank just pointed out in the chat. It's essential for bone health, immune function, and overall well-being. Your eye health, it supports healthy vision and reduces risk of myopia. And if you guys were unaware or have not heard of red light therapy, if you are currently experiencing a degrade in your vision, look into red light therapy. It's been proven to help slow or even stop the decline of your eyes. Or if you know somebody in your family, who I'm sure we all do, who is declining their eyesight, is red light therapy and overall getting the early morning and late evening sunlight on our eyes can also help slow and even sometimes stop the degradation of our eyes. So moving on, we have one last one is your alertness, increasing wakefulness and cognitive function during the day. And that's just getting sunlight in properly in the morning and in the evening time. So that low angle sunlight is what they call it, where it's these oranges and yellows that we see, that those times in the day are more essential for your circadian rhythm than any other time during the day. Like midday, we have a lot of white light coming over. As it starts to set and our atmosphere kind of distorts that white light that's coming from the sun, that is what is setting our circadian rhythm. So getting out for a minimum, if it's sunny, 5 to 10 minutes in the morning, 5 to 10 minutes in the evening during those low angle solar rays, super important for getting proper sleep. And again, all of this stuff is directly affecting how you will trade and how you will regulate your emotions. So separately, but in the same category, we're going to talk about darkness quickly. So oftentimes, a lot of us will have our lights on in our room, our bathroom, throughout the house, all the way up until you turn off the bed or turn off the lights, and then you get in bed and try to go to sleep. Excuse me. And also, a lot of us we'll get in bed after turning off the lights and then look at our phone. It's part of culture, unfortunately, nowadays. But I'm going to tell you that it is really, really important for proper sleep to make sure that you're trying to set your bedroom up in the darkest place at least 30 minutes prior to bed. And so you're like, okay, well, how do I brush my teeth before I go to bed? I don't have time to sit around in darkness for 30 minutes. Understandably, I am on the same, or I am in the same place as you. Using red lights is super beneficial for that because it is the lowest on the spectrum of how it affects your melatonin production. So when we use these low wavelength lights like red light, it really helps melatonin production. So any amount of light will disrupt your melatonin production. And as most of us know, melatonin it aids in our sleep onset and quality throughout the day. So if you guys jump into bed and are on your phone and have the lights on and then try to go to sleep, one, you're not going to be as tired, and two, your overall quality of sleep is not going to be very good. So moving on, darkness, your sleep quality. It enhances deep restorative sleep by signaling the body's it's time to rest. Also, your mental health. It helps regulate mood and prevent sleep-related mood disorders. And it also improves your immune function. Supports immune health by ensuring adequate restorative sleep. So again, proper sunlight in the mornings and late evenings and darkness are both essential for your overall health and your sleep. So again, if I'm starting to drag on and you guys are getting the point, just remind me kindly in the chat to move on. But if you guys do have questions, feel free to pause me rather. So moving on to number 3 of Huberman's 8 pillars of health is exercise. And the points I gathered are from Dr. Andy Galpin. He's a kinesiologist and he's considered one of the best experts in the world for overall health when it comes to physicality and kinesiology, as you might imagine. And he's a professor at Cal State Fullerton. So muscle strength is essential for our overall health. It builds and maintains muscle mass, which is crucial function for movement and injury prevention. And now new literature is also showing us that this organ that we call our skeletal muscle, the big stuff that we go to work out at the gym, it is also essential for longevity because of its direct impact on your hormonal health. And there's tons of research showing that poor muscle quality and mass is leading to tons of hormone disruptions around your entire body, and also leads to inflammation, which many of you might know causes lots of issues in the body when we have excess inflammation. So muscle health is essential. Again, we're talking about exercise here. So your cardiovascular health, obviously important. It improves heart health, lowers blood pressure, and reduces the risks of heart disease. Your metabolic health, it enhances metabolism, aids in weight management, and improves insulin sensitivity. Mental clarity, exercise also helps with. It boosts cognitive function, focus, and memory. Exercise helps in stress reduction. It reduces stress and anxiety through the release of endorphins. Your longevity, and this is what I was talking about earlier with overall muscle health and your cardiovascular health, contributes to a longer, healthier life by reducing the risk of any and all chronic diseases. Flexibility and mobility, so not only your longevity, but the health of those years that we have left here will also be improved. So it enhances joint health, flexibility, and overall mobility. And it also, the last point, it helps with bone density. So it reduces the risk of a few bone diseases, which lead to typically one, poor hormone health overall and production. And then also it leads to easier breaks. So when we're older, and the all too common case of our grandma or grandpa breaking their hip when they fall, or their leg, it often is due to a sedimentary lifestyle where they were not working out for a long time. And a lot of us are, especially in Western civilization, like kind of used to that. Like, oh yeah, older folks don't get much movement, and that's just part of life. Well, I'm here to tell you, and the scientific literature is directly opposing that view and saying that the more exercise, the better, no matter what age you are. As soon as you start training your skeletal muscle, your cardiovascular health, and overall movement, your overall health will increase. That's proven and backed by science. So moving on to number 4, the pillar of the 8 pillars of overall health by Dr. Andrew Huberman. These points are from him, Mr. Huberman himself. Stress management. We talked about this in one of our psychology classes, and we touched briefly on it in our risk management. Stress management is essential for maintaining mental and physical health in our line of work. So whether you are new and starting out on your trading journey, or if you've been doing this for a while, you guys might have noticed that it can increase stress not only in the moment, but throughout your entire day. And that often leads to chronic stress, which many of us know is really bad for our overall health. So these are some points on stress management by Dr. Andrew Huberman. So breath control, slow, deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing stress. So the parasympathetic and sympathetic are the two main kinds of kind of like an on-off switch for our nervous system. Sympathetic is the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic is what they often refer to as our rest and digest state. And it's obviously does a lot more than that, but it brings us from this fight or flight back to this parasympathetic nervous system, which is overall typically much more beneficial for our health unless we're getting into a fight or running from a lion. So, and you guys may think, why, how possibly would the stock market get me into this this sympathetic nervous system state that is detrimental to my overall health? Well, it's been proven that in this line of work that we have through studies done in Wall Street and other places, and a lot of other places work as well, the chemicals that increase in our blood, like norepinephrine, epinephrine, which is adrenaline, essentially, dopamine release can be a huge thing in our life, and it's not always beneficial. And then cortisol running through our brain, which many of us know as the stress hormone, all these things increase while we're in the stock market. And if if we're unable to manage our stress during those times. And so this breath control, controlling that stress, is going to be beneficial not only for your trades and the practical side of things with your day-to-day life, but also if you are not managing your stress properly, your overall health will start to decline. So there are some really good breath control techniques, and I could touch on that if you guys want me to. One's called the physiological sigh. Highly recommend. It is proven to be the best way we know to mitigate stress in our bloodstream, like cortisol and epinephrine, norepinephrine, in real time, immediately. And also those same effects of reducing stress is going throughout the day as well. So it's a breathing technique. It's one long inhale through the nose until your lungs are full, and then another sharp inhale through the nose, and then a long exhale through the mouth. So it's pretty straightforward. If you guys want to try it right now, I encourage you, or I would love to hear your feedback rather, on how you feel after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those breaths. And tell me how you feel, because it is proven to be the best way that we know of scientifically, in a really well done, robust study in a lab and outside of a lab, actually, showing that this is the best way that we know how to do it currently. So anyway, moving on from stress management, here's a few more points. Um, I do this with my Fitbit watch. I love. That's awesome, JV. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So physical exercise, like we just touched on, is really important when it comes to stress management. So regular exercise helps regulate stress hormones and improve resilience. Cold exposure, brief cold exposure can increase stress tolerance and enhance mood. And we know this to be true. Again, all this is backed by scientific studies in the literature that is most up to date. And what we're talking about here is like ice baths or cold showers in the morning. I can tell you from a subjective point, it enhances not only my alertness in the morning when I take a cold shower, but my overall focus for a couple hours afterwards, and my mood for that matter. And it's proven to increase cortisol. I know we just talked about how, cortisol is a stress hormone, and typically you're like, oh man, I want to get rid of that. Cortisol in the morning is essential for our health. It's chronic cortisol in the blood is what we're looking at after, and that is what leads to overall health degradation. So it improves dopamine, cortisol levels. Even you can get spurts of adrenaline like norepinephrine and epinephrine in your bloodstream. So cold exposure from a subjective point and a scientific literature standpoint, super beneficial for you guys. Sleep quality. I know we already talked about sleep in depth, but again, focusing on your sleep will help your stress management. Mindfulness. So practices like meditation and mindfulness decrease stress by calming the mind and leading you from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. Sunlight exposure, like we already talked about, also helps manage your stress. And then social connection. This is a big one, guys. Your social connection is essential for helping mitigate stress in your life. And so this is a point from, again, Dr. Andrew Huberman. Maintaining strong social bonds helps buffer against stress and provides emotional support. So we all know friends that really do bring our stress levels down and make us, we think about those connections after we hang out with them, and it brings us joy. And then we also have other acquaintances where when you go out, you the entire time you almost feel more stressed, and you get back and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to plan less activities with that person or that group. So be mindful of that. Social connection is essential for all human health, and you just need to be mindful of who you're hanging out with and what groups and how they make you feel. And overall, again, this is a mindfulness practice, but it is very beneficial if you start to do that, to think about the people you're hanging out with, how they make you feel during the interaction and how they make you feel after the interaction. And are you totally drained, or do you feel better about yourself and the experiences you just had after hanging out with them? Again, your life is your own. I don't want to jump too far into that. Just be very mindful about the people you're hanging out with. Relationships is point number 5 in the 8 pillars of mental, physical, and spiritual health. And so relationships also include to self. So your relationship to yourself. And these points are from Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett. And she's a well-known psychologist. And she's often the one that a lot of well-known scientists refer to when talking about relationships. So let me take a quick pause here and read through the chat, make sure I'm not missing anything. I noticed that I don't get anxious when entering trades on days that I work out first thing in the morning. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with, on a biological level, the chemicals that are flowing through our blood and what our nervous system is looking like when we go and enter into a trade. And what else we got? I would love to record these sessions to listen back on. Yep, they're recorded, and I'll post it to my YouTube channel, and you guys will be able to find that. And that is the Pursuit Crew HQ on YouTube. John, have you ever heard of the 4-7-8 breathing technique? Yeah, I have. And funny enough, they compared the 4-7-8 breathing technique, and oftentimes we call it box breathing. I know it's a little different, the timing of the breaths, but they compared that with a few other mindfulness meditation practices and breath work to the physiological sigh. And the physiological sigh was proven to reduce stress, not only subjectively, but also objectively in the blood. And they did that by taking people's blood before and after the studies were conducted. It's well done, robust study, and it's pretty cool. So now whenever I'm trying to sleep, from the Army, my time in the Army, they taught us box breathing to during stressful environments, like if you're deployed in combat and you need to be able to sleep to function better, how to get to sleep. And I was taught things like relaxing every muscle in your body. So I would start with my eyebrows, and then my face, my overall face, my jaw, my neck, and I'd go down my body, relaxing everything. And at the same time, I would practice box breathing. But now, with the information I have here, I start whenever I struggle with sleeping. I've started doing the physiological sigh. It is so much better. I'm telling you, it is pretty cool. So I changed up completely my breath work with what I do, and I also do it in the really cold showers. Unfortunately, here in Alabama, my new home, the water doesn't get that cold, so I actually really do enjoy cold showers. Not during them, but after, if that makes sense. And I would also practice a physiological side during that, and it was super beneficial. I really highly encourage it. Yeah, but one long inhale through the nose to fully inflate your lungs, and then another really quick inhale through the nose, and that inflates all the little small sacs in your lungs that oftentimes carbon dioxide gets stuck into. There's so many benefits to it. Anyway, we'll move right on. Don't want to keep the audience waiting too long for stuff. All right. So point number 5, relationships including to self, by Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, and she's a well-known psychologist. So emotional granularity. So I first learned about this from a study that was done in Japan, and now it's become more and more after the past couple of years, really beneficial. And so emotional granularity is the ability to identify and label emotions precisely, enhancing emotional regulation and communication. So an example of that is if one of your friends who you confided in and told a secret to, or something really personal, and you just find out that they told another friend or acquaintance of yours your secret that you didn't want getting out. Instead of just saying you feel mad and that's kind of the end of it, you're mad and sad and that's it, and you kind of suppress that. What emotional granularity is really diving into the emotions you're feeling, bringing them to a conscious level and articulating them in the best way you can, whether that's through talking out loud, journaling, or talking to another friend of yours or a mentor, and describing that emotion in depth is proven. And again, like I mentioned, this Japanese study is how I first heard about it, and that's why I included it. But Dr. Lisa Barrett also talks about it quite a bit, and the ability to do that helps regulate your emotion, not only the stability of it, but also it builds resilience for the next time you do feel an emotion like that. When we're able to articulate them, we're much more capable of moving past them in a healthy way. So I encourage you guys throughout the day, whether it's good, bad, or somewhere in between of one type of emotion, I encourage you guys to bring those emotions to a surface level, to feel them completely, and then try to articulate them in a way that you would explain, to a college level student or a high school level student. It's really beneficial, and I've done that in my own life, and it has helped me a ton move through emotions in a really healthy way. And it also helps you keeping from suppressing those emotions as well. And that can be subconscious, on a subconscious level that you're suppressing. All right, another point on relationships is social support. So strong relationships improve mental health, cognitive function, and longevity. We already talked about how important social connection is for stress management, but it also is very beneficial in your own relationships, including to self. Self-compassion. So self-compassion Kindness to self reduces stress and fosters resilience. So be nice to yourself. I don't know if many of you guys know this, but I'm a Christian, and oftentimes what helps me, when I know I did something I'm not proud of or sinned or whatever it might be in your own life, and you can apply that to whatever you believe. But, I often focus on, for me, God's grace and not the sin. It's easy for us to, fall or stumble or make a mistake, whatever it is in your life. It may not be considered a sin to you, but something you don't want to do and you end up doing anyway. And when you focus on what you just did and you start beating yourself up, I promise you that is not beneficial for anybody, a part of it. But if you focus on not the sin, rather, and this is an example for me, when I don't focus on the sin, but I focus on the grace of God and how truly He loves me. And again, this could be applied to you in many different circumstances, no matter what you believe. When you focus on that positivity and start to practice that, and you start to implement that in your own life, where you, instead of focusing on the negatives, you focus on the positive outlook of what just happened, it will lead to many mental benefits, and it improves subjectively, it improves my relationships across the board. So, it helps when I see someone, instead of judging them, when I see them do something that I don't like, helps me think, well, like, what kind of person is that, the judge person, that if I lived the exact same life as them and I was raised the exact same way that they were, I would probably be doing the same thing that they're doing right now, or maybe even worse. So to show them true love is super beneficial. And just that self-compassion, the kindness to myself, I can tell that has a direct impact on my relationship to others as well. So from a subjective standpoint, that self-compassion is super beneficial. And we know from well-done studies that it is also objectively beneficial. So, and then also the Bible teaches us that as well. Pretty cool. All right, so emotional intelligence. Key components include self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, and social skills. All things that will help in your relationships in life. So, and then our last point on relationships is your mind and body connection. So aligning mental and physical state supports overall well-being. And you may hear that and kind of sounds new agey, our mind and body connection. But when you think about it, oftentimes we see this separation of mind and body, especially when you think about Western medication and support in the health space, is oftentimes you go to the doctor and they're treating only your body or only your mind. And we all often forget that they're one and the same, and that, when you start to slack on one, it often leads to slack in the other. And it's kind of this downhill cycle, and vice versa. When you start to improve one, you'll often see improvements in the other. So again, that mind-body connection is pretty important, knowing that, when you fall into a depressive episode in your life, and I know that for a lot of us, you may not experience that. For some of us, that's a weekly battle or a daily battle. And I encourage you guys just to be mindful of how you're treating your body. Like, if you're trying to improve your mental health, well, how's your body doing? Like, what kind of food are you eating? Are you getting that morning sunlight? How's your sleep? Are you exercising? How are your social connections in your relationships, including to yourself, like we talked about? All these things matter, and you'd be surprised, if you're going through a struggle, one of those seasons in life where we don't feel as we think we should, and everything just seems a little darker. Like, pay attention to the habits you're doing. Like I said, wake up on time, get consistent sleep, eat healthily, eat good food, start to cut out smoking and drinking and whatever other substances you might be abusing, and get the proper amount of water, and start exercising, get it outside and touching the grass, and tell me how you feel. I think for all of us, that's a fact that we know, but we often forget when we are in a slump. So just kind of that little nod to you guys for a reminder to that mind and body connection is super important, and they both rely on each other. So moving on, we're wrapping it up here, guys, I promise. Hopefully I'm not too boring for you guys. Point number 6 in the 8 pillars of health is nutrients, the amount, timing, and content. And these points are from Dr. Andrew Huberman. So let's talk about macronutrients and the balance of them. So proper ratios of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates optimize energy, brain function, and physical health. If you guys don't know much about that, I will be diving more into overall nutrients in the future lesson. But again, these are just briefly touching over them. The timing of intake also is important. Eating at consistent times aligns with circadian rhythms, which we talked about is important for sleep and stress mitigation. And the timing of intake also supports metabolism and sleep quality. Moving on to micronutrients. So the sufficiency of those as well. So vitamins and minerals are crucial for immune function, cognitive health, and overall well-being. Fasting can also be beneficial. So intermittent fasting can enhance metabolic health, support cognitive function, and promote cellular repair. So pretty cool. Excuse me, who was it? There's someone who does a really well done and scientifically backed water fast, and I'm spacing on his name right now. It's not Andy Galpin. Anyway, well, maybe someone in the chat knows. 3-day water fast, someone super famous in the physiological space. Anyway, moving on. Fasting can be really beneficial for you guys to help reset not only your microbiome, but a few other things as well. So hydration, adequate water intake is essential for cognitive clarity, physical performance, and mood regulation. 72-hour water challenge, that's awesome. Sweet. Who did you do that with? Like, did you follow a certain protocol? And if you remember, I forget his name. It's right on the tip of my tongue. And then our last point with nutrients is gut health. A balanced diet with fiber, probiotics, and diverse nutrients supports a healthy gut microbiome, which influences mood and immune function. And I'm going to touch briefly on that. In the past couple of years, there has been some really well done studies, and what they wanted to do was track how long it takes for food to affect our brain. And there were only 2 circuits in between, 2 cell types in between what goes into our body and what goes to our mind. It typically, for reference, like what we talk about hormone production in your skeletal muscle, sometimes the cells to get to the other organs in your body, the different cell types it passes through, could be upwards of 1 dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen different cell types to get those hormones transferred to there. So when you eat something, these studies show that it only takes 2, and it's going there's linings, there's cell that lines your gut, and when you consume food, those cells are sensing it, and then it is immediately going to your nervous system, so your spinal cord essentially, and going to your brain. So 2 pathways. So truly what you eat is really affecting your brain. And they also recently meaning in the past couple of years, that we have neurons in our gut. So there's not hard scientific evidence behind this yet, but they're trying to do studies right now about the gut feeling that we get. And now that we know that there are neurons in our gut, that gut feeling may be something a bit more substantial than we might think. And I know on a subconscious level or a subjective level, that gut feeling has probably got quite a few of us out of a bad situation once or twice. I know it has for me, especially when talking about people and situations that you find yourself in. But also, bigger weights, and like when you're weighing a decision to take a job in another state or something like that, that gut feeling may have more substance than we believe after finding that there are neurons. We initially thought that there were only neurons found in our brain, and now we're finding them in our gut. Pretty crazy stuff, at least I think so. Anyway, Alan Go. No. Man, I'll find the name for you guys. The guy I'm talking about. He helped. If someone wants to look it up really quick, he helped the UFC CEO, Dana White. Dana was about to die from essentially high blood pressure and overall inflammation throughout his body, and he helped him get through and basically changed his life, saved his life. It was that person. He has really good water fasts that I have yet to try, but I'm going to in the future. All right, moving on. Pillar number 7, oral health and gut microbiome. And these are points from Dr. Andrew Huberman. Oral microbiome. Maintaining oral hygiene prevents harmful bacteria from entering the bloodstream, reducing systemic inflammation and disease risk. Gary Brecka, yes, thank you guys. Gary Brecka is who I'm talking about. If you guys are looking into a water fast, he has a really good one that's guided, and you can just look it up online. Gary Breakfast, yes, sir. All right, your gut-brain axis. So a healthy gut microbiome supports cognitive function, emotional health, and stress resilience. Dietary impact. So fiber-rich foods and probiotics promote a balanced gut microbiome, improving digestion and immune function. Oral gut connection. So oral health directly influences gut microbiota. Poor dental hygiene can disrupt gut health. So you think about your mouth, right? We eat a bunch of foods. There's tons and tons of bacteria in our mouth. We know that. Some are really good, some are really bad. And you think when we swallow that food, that bacteria, if we're not taking proper care of our oral space, you could call it, that bacteria can move down through your esophagus into your gut, into your whole digestive tract. And that bacteria can really disrupt your gut microbiome, which is essential for overall health, including your immune system. As many of you guys know, if your immune system starts to go or attack itself, it is either a lifelong struggle or can lead to death, unfortunately. So your oral health is so much more important than most of us think. And there's tons of studies going over that. And I also forgot to include in my point for oral health and gut microbiome is your oral health. It is so close to the your blood-brain barrier that when you get an infection in your mouth, it often is the fastest way to get an infectious disease in your brain. And that's why oftentimes when you hear of people having an infection in their mouth, it is taken very seriously because it can often lead to some irreversible damage and sometimes death from it passing that blood-brain barrier. So again, I don't want to, scare anybody, but it is super important to maintain proper oral health, and that includes flossing and brushing your teeth, avoiding most mouthwashes because it removes so much good bacteria in your mouth. If you want to find a good mouthwash, you can just use really salty water. Don't swallow it, but put a bunch of salt in your water, and just the granularity of that will help remove a lot of bad bacteria and plaque, as well as coconut oil. I know that one's a weird one. And then also baking soda can help a lot. So anyway, moving on. Last point with oral health and gut microbiome is inflammation control. So good oral hygiene and a healthy gut reduce overall inflammation, supporting long-term health. As we know, most diseases that the human body comes in contact with is either causing inflammation or stemming from inflammation. So general rule of thumb, the less inflammation, the better. Not always, but typically, especially when we're talking about chronic inflammation. All right, lastly, and arguably most importantly, is spiritual grounding. So these points are pretty, they're scientific. And so I just want you guys to take this with a grain of salt. This is coming from well-done studies. And so this is also important to realize, like spiritual grounding is also, essential for your mental and physical health on an objective level. We know that from well-done studies. And then I'll jump in briefly to touch on spiritual grounding on a deeper level. So these are the scientific points. It adds purpose and meaning. So connecting with the sense of of purpose or higher meaning enhances emotional resilience and mental well-being. We know this to be true. Mindfulness practices, so meditation, prayer, or reflection, can reduce stress, improve focus, and foster a sense of inner peace. Again, we know this to be true. Community connection, so being part of a spiritual or religious community, provides social support, improving overall health and longevity. We talked about social connection and relationships and community earlier. We know that's beneficial for a facet of reasons. Perspective and gratitude. So spiritual grounding encourages a broader perspective on life, promoting gratitude and reducing negative emotions. But you know that emotional control is also important. Stress reduction, engaging in spiritual practices can lower cortisol levels, reducing stress and anxiety. We know this. Emotional stability, spiritual benefits, and practice provide comfort during challenging times, enhancing emotional stability and coping mechanisms. So these are scientific points. I don't mean to sound so rigid when it comes to spiritual grounding, but we know these facts to be true from well done studies. So it's, if you, for at a minimum, on a very practical level, spirituality is beneficial for your mental and physical health. On my personal points, excuse me, and here I'm talking subjectively, so take it with a grain of salt, like everything I've said. How I think about our overall health is like a tripod. So we have 3 legs, and our life is what is our whole life is what is in balance of those 3 legs. And those 3 legs, one of them being mental health, one of them being spiritual health, and one of them being physical health. So when you think about that tripod standing upright and your whole life is resting on top of it, if one of those is suffering, the whole tripod is going to start to come down. But on a lighter note, when you think about how improving either your spiritual health, your mental health, or your physical health, you'll often see improvements in the other ones as well. It's almost like a Venn diagram. You know, they all have their individual benefits, but they're all essential for your overall health. So some of you guys in the audience, I know I just lost some members, could be atheists and not believe it all, but on a practical level, we know it's important for our overall health, but on a deeper level, it is so important for me personally. There have been some extremely trying times in my life, and I know without Jesus in my life, I can confidently say I would not be here today. And so on a subjective level, it's saved my life. I don't know how many times, but I know at least once, twice actually. And so it is super important about how we view our perspective on our overall health. It's not just our physical health, or not just our mental health, or not just our spiritual health. All these things matter, and they are intertwined and they're inseparable. We cannot, be a healthy person in general when we're only physically healthy, or only mentally healthy, or only 2 out of 3. So this is just a reminder, encouragement to think about your overall health as your physical, mental, and spiritual health. So hopefully I didn't bore you guys too much today. That was the intro. So I know it was a lot of information, lots of points, lots of things to cover. But again, we went over Dr. Andrew Huberman's 8 Pillars of Health, just because I can't disagree with anything he says. And he's also much more qualified to speak on a lot of these points than I have. And that's for sure. He's a well-regarded neuroscientist. So again, just briefly covering what we went over: sleep, sunlight and darkness, exercise, stress management, relationships, including to self, your nutrients, the amount, the timing, the content, oral health and gut microbiome, more important than most people think, and spiritual grounding. All of these things essential for our overall health, and I couldn't agree with Dr. Andrew Huberman more. I know that from personal experience, working on these things individually and as a whole has improved my life in many different ways. So hopefully you guys learned something. And if you guys would like me to touch on a certain topic on a future episode, because again, we're going to be doing wellness classes every single Wednesday. for the foreseeable future. So if you guys are interested in one topic, or something piqued your interest, ask questions, put it out to me. This is a community, and I'm not going to talk about something you guys don't want to hear. So your feedback is super important to me. Let's see what we got. Frank said, I found an app called Yuka that has completely changed how I eat. It basically tells you what hazardous additives are in foods. All you do is scan the barcode. It's a game changer. Yes, I use Yuka for every single time I go to the grocery store. If you guys don't have it on your phone, I highly encourage you guys to download it. Cool. It's just like the barcode scanner they have to do inventory at the grocery store, but it's on your phone. So you just scan the barcode if you have internet, and it will tell you what that food is, and it will list the ingredients, and it will just warn you about harmful additives that might be in it, additives that you should be concerned about, things to completely avoid. And then also it provides you with substitutes for those foods. So say you have a favorite food that you really like in moderation, you're like, I have to have it, and you don't want to cut it out of your diet. It will also give you healthy alternatives to that food, which is super cool. I've used that quite a few times. Yuka. Yep, just like Frank said, Yuka. Super, super good. Cool. Well, send us the books list to read. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll send you guys out some stuff. Well, sweet. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Looks like the chat had a good time today. I could tell we lost a few members when we got towards the spiritual grounding aspect, but that's understandable. It's hard sometimes to talk about that stuff, and to talk about stuff we're uncomfortable in general. So if touching on that point, if I could offer you guys one encouragement today, it'd be to talk about uncomfortable things, and to be whatever emotions come with that, to practice that physiological sigh. Be like, okay, we can take this. Whatever you have to say, I'm going to respect what you have to say, because if I've lived the exact same life you have, and I was raised the same way you were, I would probably be doing the same thing you're doing right now. And having that perspective can change your life in a lot of beneficial ways. So I encourage you guys to talk about those hard things to talk about. I encourage you guys to improve your mental, physical, and spiritual health. And I encourage you guys to be part of a community. And I want to touch on that point again, like that social connection is so, so important for our overall health. So go make new friends, reconnect with old friends, be gracious and understanding to yourself, love yourself. And truly, I mean, how could you possibly love someone else in your life if you don't love yourself first? Do you even know how to love if you don't love yourself? I don't know. Questions to ask. I don't have the answer to them, but I have some thoughts on them. So go be healthy, guys. Make the right decisions. It's going to pay off big time in the long run. Not only for you, but to be inspiration for the people that you care about. So you guys are awesome. Appreciate you guys a ton. Go work out today. Go get good sleep tonight. Go drink water. Pick organic foods over processed. You guys know the thing. So go do it. Appreciate you guys a ton, and have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow for our psychology lesson. See you guys.